welcome to Superintendent Spotlight. This is actually our last episode for the year. And we started the year with 2 episodes that had to do with the technology in the Hingham Public Schools, one focusing on the high school and things that were going on there, and the second one on our elementary program. We also have a special new program this year, and that's a one-to-one, or sometimes we call it a Chromebook initiative at the new Hingham Middle School. So today we're going to end the year with an episode that gives us some discussion about how that all came about initially, and then how it's worked out. So I have 2 guests in this first segment. First, Derek Smith, and Derek is the principal at Hingham Middle School, brand new building, finishing the first year, and we got through it all so far. And the second person is Karen Condon. Karen's been with us in a prior episode, and Karen is the technology coordinator at Hingham Middle School, and that means all kinds of technology, Karen, not just the Chromebooks.
Correct.
But we're here today to talk about the Chromebooks. So when we were first beginning talking about design of Hingham Middle School, we actually had 2 committees going at one point. We had a committee of staff at Hingham Middle School with their thoughts about what needed to be in the new building. And we also had a wider technology committee for the district because we were looking at some other goals. So it just seemed the time we talked in our strategic plan about at some point having a one-to-one initiative in the schools, and all of a sudden we were faced with some timelines, decision-making timelines about what should that look like, and should it look differently at different levels. And I think we all agreed that the place to start with a one-to-one initiative. And one-to-one simply means one device for one child, and that these devices would go home with the child and be part of their learning equipment, so to speak. So we all agreed the middle school was the perfect place to do that. And we all set about trying to borrow ideas, I guess borrow would be a generous word, from friends and neighbors who had done the same thing. So what in your mind was kind of the overriding goal or set of goals that you thought we should be accomplishing with a one-to-one at the middle school?
Well, I think that all of our schools, we aim to not just focus on curriculum with the students, but ready them for college and career. And these are the types of tools that students will be using in the future when they go off, whether it be college or enter the workforce. They need to have a certain level of comfort with technology. And we thought that this was a great way to build a foundation for the students so that they were ready at the end of high school for whatever it is they choose to do. But in addition to that, I always thought of the initiative as something that would enhance what goes on in the classroom. We didn't want to say to teachers, we need to totally revamp what you do on a day-to-day basis, because we have excellent teachers who do an excellent job. But this is just another tool that they could use. And we've really seen the teachers take to it in the 6th grade. They hit the ground running the first day that the students had them. So I think we're making good progress towards those goals. Obviously there's always work to do, but I think this was a good first step.
Right, and I think we talked a lot about that's a great time for kids to learn to be responsible learners.
Yes.
In the early years, we have a lot of responsibility for providing that, but as kids move through the middle school and into the high school, what does it mean to be a responsible learner, and how can you use this kind of a tool to enhance that?
Yes, and the teachers really have given the students the opportunity to manage their Chromebooks independently, and they've really done a great job of it.
Right. So around that time, a couple of our neighboring communities were also adopting one-to-one initiatives. In fact, had already adopted, and of course when neighboring communities adopt anything, we have folks that think, well, what should we be doing? And the 2 neighboring communities that I'm thinking about were adopting iPads.
Yes.
So all of a sudden the discussion moved from not should we do a one-to-one initiative, but so what should the device be? And so there was a lot of discussion about that, and I would say a lot of pressure ultimately, because we were ultimately chose a different tool.
Yes.
So would you talk about your decision about Chromebook over iPad, which was what our neighbors were doing?
And I did have the opportunity.
Which, by the way, worked well for them.
Absolutely.
We're not being critical of their decision, but we had different goals. And
No, I visited several schools that did use iPads. They went one-to-one, and it was a very successful program. But based on what we wanted to accomplish with our students, the iPad really wasn't going to meet all of our needs. We liked something that was more like a laptop with a full keyboard, not something that you'd have to attach from time to time. Also, the Chromebook is a Google product, and we have moved into the Google Apps for Education in Hingham, And this really, it dovetailed nicely with what the teachers had already begun to do with the kids. Many of our teachers have created Google Classrooms, and these devices, while you can use the same apps with an iPad, it's just so seamless when you have the Google device and the Google Apps for Education. Students are doing more and more and saving more and more of their work to the Google Drive, where the teachers are able to access it and comment on it, and they can collaborate together on writing assignments or presentations. So it really, it just met our needs in a better way than the iPad seemed to.
To do. Okay. And honestly, I expected I might get some comments or questions about that, but I think that you and your team did such a good job in explaining what the goal was, and that this was the right tool for that goal, that really didn't get any feedback that this was not the best decision. Of course, it helped that it was the less expensive decision.
That's true.
As well, in terms of funding plan. And by the way, for those who are watching, of course, the middle school was partially funded by the school building authority, and they have an amount of money that they put in, their per capita amount of money that can go to technology. And so virtually everything that we have done with respect to this initiative was funded by the building project. So obviously, in visiting and calling around and talking to other people, we knew a lot of things that we had to worry about, a lot of logistics that we had to work out. So as this all rolled out, a little bit later than we thought because of the winter, the stormy season, but in any event, were there any logistical things that were unanticipated that you had an oh my gosh moment or
I'd
two
say that
about?
right now what we're dealing with is the issue of printing. Most students go home to a house that doesn't have a cloud-enabled printer, so they can't print from their Chromebook as easily. And Karen's done some work with families to teach them how to do that and given them information so that they can do that at home. But what we've seen is a real increase in the volume of printing that's done at school.
At school.
So we need to address that in the future so that we don't consume much more paper than we have in the past, not to mention the very expensive ink that goes along with it.
Sure. Okay.
The other minor hiccup that we had to deal with was around the insurance. We encouraged families to purchase insurance from a third-party vendor, and it was very reasonably priced. But in order to do that, they needed a serial number from the device. And I had said to parents, I'd like that done before you get the device, but you couldn't put the cart before the horse, so that we needed to get those devices into the hands of kids so that they could then purchase the insurance. But that seemed to be easily worked out.
And so that's gone well
Yes.
since
yes.
you solved that problem.
Very well.
Right. Okay. So I understand that the current sixth graders had to return their Chromebooks, some of
Yes.
them sadly. I ran into a family just the other day at the farmer's market, and I was introduced to the 4 children in the family, and one of them said, "Oh, sad about having to turn in my Chromebook," and Mom said, that she didn't think that the child really realized how much she was using it. But anyway, those are going to be returned in the summer,
Yes.
to the same students.
Correct.
But we also are going to be distributing to 2 additional classes, to incoming 6th grade and incoming 8th grade
Yes.
students. So everyone next year will have a Chromebook. So tell us how that distribution is going to work.
It worked so well back in the winter when we distributed to the 6th graders. I'm going to try to build on the model that we used then and enlist a little extra help. It was basically myself and one other person distributing the Chromebooks over the course of 2 days to 380 plus students. We gave a 3-hour window and divided the class alphabetically, and kids came to the main office with their paperwork and parents and picked up their devices, and it worked wonderfully. We didn't have anyone waiting for more than 5 minutes over the course of those 2 days, which was important because I wanted the program to roll out in a positive way. And if you're waiting for a half an hour, it's going to color your view. So I plan to use a similar approach in late August. We'll be reaching out to families, letting them know when their window is, and we have the devices all labeled and ready for the kids, and as they show up with their paperwork and their signed agreements, we just hand them the device and off they go.
And off they go. Sounds easy.
Yes.
I don't know if you've looked closely at your projection numbers for next year, but we opened that building with 1022, which is the capacity it was designed for, so we knew that
Yes.
was going to happen. And we will have over 1,100 students there in September. So that's a big number. And that brings you into the picture, Karen, because you had to ready all of those. We talk about distribution as if you just take devices from
Here's
pile
your
and
box.
hand them
Right,
out. But in fact, there are boxes. So walk us through what you had to do to get those ready for distribution.
Pretty much what we do is each student should have a Google account so they can log into Google, log into their Chromebook. So once we make sure that's all in order, then we basically unbox the device, configure them so they're part of our Google organization, and that's where we can apply policies such as restrictions for internet access, what apps that they have access to, extensions. And then we label them for each student and record their service tag, put that into the database because the service tag is associated with their X2 account, and just rebox them and they're ready to go. I mean, and the configuration process doesn't really take that long. It's basically configuring them to the Wi-Fi so that when they come to school, they're automatically online and can access their Google accounts, their Google Drive.
Did any students report having problems with access when they got home?
Not so much. It seemed like it was fairly seamless for the students when they got home. They click on the little icon down the bottom of the window, and it lists all the Wi-Fi networks that they have access to, and they just go through the process if they have to apply a security password or something like that.
And you did have some help in doing the...
Yes, yep. I had an intern, college intern, come and help me with the boxing, unboxing, labeling. That's probably the most tedious part of the process. The configuration and getting it online is really, it takes 5 minutes.
And so is there anything you learned about that distribution to the 6th grade that you would do differently, other than you have twice as many to do for this?
No, it's pretty much
summer?
going to be the same process. It's just, I think the boxing, unboxing, labeling is a little bit more streamlined. I've come up with a little bit faster way to do it, but it's really pretty much the same process.
Okay. What were some of the issues? Derek mentioned the printing as an issue. Were there other issues that came up that parents and students needed some help with?
It was more. I think the integration went very smoothly from my perspective. I think the biggest issues was just the students remembering to charge them overnight. So they would come in. If you charge it overnight, the Chromebooks that we bought have about an 8-hour lifespan. So I think that's pretty good for a day of school, and just remembering to bring them with them.
And did they improve in that? Because we're talking only about a few months here.
Yes.
So we have to go back and do another evaluation when we've had a longer period of time. But so
Yeah, I think as time went on, it was more in the forefront of their mind. Like, geez,
well,
okay,
it's
this
the
is like my
responsible learner.
correct,
whole-
correct.
whole
Yep.
piece. Actually had the privilege really of looking at the survey that we're going to talk to teachers in a minute, and they did a very comprehensive survey of students. 24 pages worth as you print it out. We were talking about printing. So, what about teachers? What kinds of issues or concerns did teachers have in terms of rolling this out? We'll talk about some of the professional development things
Sure.
in a minute with the staff, but in terms of technical issues.
The feedback that I heard the most was the students, the charging and remembering to bring them. The other thing that I heard was about keeping the students focused on the task that they're working on. And instead of working on a Google Doc, they're chatting with somebody, or they're doing a search on ESPN or something like that. Something that we've come up with and that we're looking at is something called Land School. It's a tool that we use in the computer labs to monitor what students are
okay.
using on their
That's good to know.
desktops. The teachers have a view access into what they're looking at. So we're actually looking at that tool probably over the summer to see if maybe we can integrate that this fall. So if the teachers are in their classroom, they can bring up this application and see what Johnny is looking at on his Chromebook.
We're actually going to roll out as a kind of an experiment this summer Chromebooks to our school committee members and see if we can do a better job of having an electronic agenda and save paper and putting together packets and all of that. So we'll see how good your directions are, because they're pretty much on their own. They're getting the boxes as well. With,
Sure, any feedback
with,
is welcomed.
Very good. So we're going to take a break now because I have two more guests, the two teachers who've really been largely responsible for getting this whole thing going in terms of the instructional tool, and also a parent of two children actually in your building. So thank you both for being here. We'll
My
take a
pleasure.
break now,
Thank
and
you.
we'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone. We're going to continue our conversation about the one-to-one initiative. Sometimes we call it the Chromebook initiative at Hingham Middle School. And I have three new guests with me. Immediately to my left is Lynn Mayo. And Lynn reminded me this morning that I was her teacher in that class when she was in elementary school. So, and then next to Lynn are two of the teachers who really had such a big role in rolling this initiative out, particularly with respect to teacher support. And so we have Lauren Sioka, and next to Lauren is Carolyn Ferris. So we focused in the first part of this segment in talking with Derek and with Karen Condon, our technology coordinator, on some of the logistics. You know, why did we decide on a one-on-one, and why did we make it Chromebooks rather than iPads, and you know, how did the rollout go, and so on. So in this segment, we're going to talk a little bit more about how this has worked out for kids and for teachers, and what are all of the components of that. So you two have done a lot of training for teachers. So what were some of the big ideas that you needed to get across initially as you began the training? Who's going to
Well,
answer that?
I think for the ideas initially to talk with the teachers is to really explain what an incredible asset this is for the teachers and for the students, and it really made the curriculum accessible to everybody. Students who were out of school could access the curriculum, they could access the documents that the teachers used in class, they could ask us questions, they could ask students questions, they could work on projects even if they were at home using the Chromebooks. Mm-hmm. And I think that moving forward with electronic portfolios, that's something that the English department's working on, and we would love to see all of the teachers utilize.
Mm-hmm. And actually, we should let our audience know that we have a pretty technologically literate teacher base anyway. I know that I attended department meetings last year in the middle school, and in some of those meetings in different disciplines, people were sharing things that they were trying, whether it was a piece of software or an app or an idea, and shared that with their peers. So you had something to build upon with respect to the folks that you had. So at the middle school level, we have teams, and we have individual teachers for math and science and social studies and English language arts and foreign language. So would you say that the disciplines use the Chromebooks with equal frequency, or there are things unique to the different disciplines that you need to take into account?
Well, I think the Chromebook is, it's a tool. So it's a tool that can be used for the students as a learning tool, it could be used as a teaching tool. And so the teaching tool part of it can really be used by any teacher of any discipline. Mm-hmm. And it's a matter of how comfortable the teacher is to use it as a method to quickly question your class on the particular lesson of the day. And that, again, could be any discipline. It can be a quick quiz that the students take. And of course, with the accessibility that the students have to the web and to writing, it lent itself easily, I think more easily, to the English language arts classroom, the social studies classroom. So to say it isn't necessarily used in equal frequency, but the opportunity is there for every discipline, for every teacher.
And I would say too that our audience may not know that we have lots of other technologies in the middle school. So we have a language lab, for example, and the students are scheduled. We have iPads in science classes, and so kids have more than one tool to work on. So the two of you did a survey of, I guess, all 388 students, because the survey I mentioned in the other segment is like 24 pages long if you print it all out. And of course, middle school students are not shy about offering their opinions. So what are some of the things that you learned in the survey?
Well, I think first and foremost, they were very happy to provide their opinions, and I think they felt that was because when I proposed it to them, I said, we need to know how, we need your feedback. You are the ones who are using them on a daily basis, and it was so overwhelmingly positive, their responses. One response that stood out to me was, thank you for trusting us with this device. And I think the responsibility that we're handing them, it's a device for learning, and they really took that and rose to that challenge and wanted to prove that they could do it. I mean, these were sixth graders who were having them for the first time, and so I think it was a great way to introduce it to the school, to have them take ownership of it. I mean, and they were honest with their opinions, but honestly, most of those opinions were very positive, and you know, a few challenges here and there, but it was really things that we were all working out together. And they appreciated the support that they were getting in the classroom from their teachers, and so it was nice to see how well it was received.
Did you learn anything particular from that survey that you have to make a change about?
Just as far as the rollout, because the devices themselves can be a little fragile. So the fact that they needed those cases right away, and they realized that right off the bat, that they needed to protect those.
Although some thought that they should be more padded or thicker or
right. That was
kind
good
of thing.
feedback that they gave us.
Depends on
and-
the student too. You know, some students were trying to put other things in the bag, and it's just a learning opportunity to.
Right. They were also, they also wanted us to know that it helped them to know when they were going to use the Chromebook in the classroom. So that was a good piece of feedback that we could then tell the teachers, you know, if there's a way to give the kids a heads up, you know, on specific days, you'll definitely.
So they're
need to-
charged and
So they're
they
charged
come.
and ready, and that was a challenge for them to make sure that those were charged and ready to go. And sometimes they thought they were charged, and then they'd open them the next morning. There was a week that I talked to them a lot about the weekends, because I think once they got home on a Friday, a lot of them kind of put it aside, and Monday morning was, it's not working. But they learned how to.
And the teachers were adaptable. We all had extra cords in our classrooms. We have, you know, our own Chromebooks that we loaned out to students if they weren't charged or if they forgot it at home, and it's a learning curve.
New pencil.
So
I didn't bring my pencil.
that's
Well,
it.
that's exactly
Right.
it.
No, that's what it is. It absolutely is.
And of course, middle school students never hesitate to surprise at times. So, so what are some of the things that really surprised you about, in a positive way? I just couldn't imagine that a student would have thought of.
Well, I
whatever.
think they're actually the ones who are leading this initiative. They are the ones who are coming in and they're saying, I have this great app that we could use for grammar, or there's this extension that we can install and it'll make everything read more clearly. And I think that really it's been fantastic as a teacher because the students and the teachers really partnered together, and I think that education's really starting to change, and it's not going to be the teacher-directed classroom anymore. And just from the past few months, watching the students take off and fly with this initiative, it's been inspiring as a teacher, and I can only imagine, you know, we're already on our way to the flipped classrooms, and it's really student-centered learning. It's fantastic.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
And on the other end, I'm sure there were other things that they did or thought of doing that
You know,
might not ever have dreamed.
I don't think, I think in terms of the things that they could have done, or maybe we were concerned about, or teachers were worried about, that it was really more in the free time during directed studies that maybe students at the end of the day when they had a few extra minutes, they used that as downtime, which isn't terrible. And I think that, you know, Karen is going to be installing software over the summer.
She mentioned,
Right,
yes.
which the teachers I think will be thrilled with. So we'll be able to just kind of spot check where students are and make sure everybody's on task and get them back on task if they're not. And I think it's going to be great.
And I know a lot of parents and some teachers were concerned about that, about misuse or inappropriate use of the Chromebooks.
And the students were too. That was something that I found in the survey, that a lot of them were saying, you know, just make sure that everybody's using it the way they should be using it. They're kind of policing each other and making sure that they're being used well and the way they're intended to be used.
So now we have, next year, I was saying to Derek, we're expecting more than 1,100 students in that building, so we're going to be redistributing the 6th grade ones, the current next year's 7th grade, and 2 new classes. And so as the 7th and 8th graders get ready for this experience, what are some of the ways that we've been able to support their preparedness in their learning?
Well, they also, the teachers got the Chromebooks at the same, they've had it several months before
Yes.
the students will get them. So they've been able to have the same professional development opportunities that the 6th grade teachers had. Lauren and I have spoken with the 7th and 8th grade teachers. They'll come up and they'll ask us what apps we're using in our classroom, what extensions we've installed. I think it's really the one-on-one conversations that we have in passing that we're able to go over with the teachers and explain, how to get started using, the Google Drive with Google Classroom, and even using grading apps so that you can attach rubrics to. And I think ideally it would be fantastic to see the time for Lauren and I to be able to go into their classes and while they're teaching.
And I'm sure there are departmental conversations that occur as
Exactly.
well in multi-department meetings.
Yes,
right?
because a lot of this is just really discovery and exploration, and every teacher has to do that to a certain extent on their own. But the fact that we were able to take this year and really hash out some, what works and what doesn't, because there's
Right.
so many options out there. We had some professional development for ourselves, and that's what actually started us getting interested in this. And then
Right.
we were able to kind of, let everybody know what works well. So I think the 7th and 8th grade teachers are in a good place, and it'll be exciting to have it throughout
Right.
the building.
So Lynn, you have 2 6th graders, so that's an interesting perspective because kids being kids, 2 kids are not always the same. So tell us from the parent perspective what you see that this has brought to your children, and if it's different for the 2 different youngsters, then in what ways is this experience different?
Well, it's been a very positive experience. I have a son and daughter, twins who are in 6th grade, and my son is severely dysgraphic. So he's actually been using laptops throughout elementary school, later elementary school. I think what I notice for the 2 of them is it's the benefit where I was most excited for him because this means for the first time in his life everybody's doing the same thing he's doing and the teachers are all on board with it and it works well. But they both benefited from it. So we talk about universal design for instruction where everybody benefits. This is a situation where he is a kid who really needed it to function in school, and it's worked for both of them very well. They both adjusted to it very quickly. I was worried about the learning curve. How are they going to handle this? And it was instant. There wasn't a learning curve.
Yeah. And were you concerned as a parent, or maybe the peers that you have, concerned about misuse or abuse of the Chromebook?
Definitely concerned. In our family, our children didn't have their own access to the internet. We actually have our computer in the kitchen, so everybody is always seeing what everybody's looking at. Now they can be in their bedrooms and use it however. However, I think that they're aware that the school could be monitoring, so they're responsible.
Right.
And one of my concerns is that I'm not sure that they read as much as they used to, read books, because they are reading online. They're very up to date on Deflategate, they can tell you right away, because but they are also very interested in current events, and they're reading, they're learning online, they're reading things, and we talk about it at the dinner table.
Yeah. So are they going to survive the summer without
It, I actually said that. How
Without
does
the
it feel? It's
Chromebook.
kind of like a friend you've had all year, that they've used.
And what suggestions do you have as a parent to the staff, to those of us who work in the schools, about how we can make this project work better, if we can? 'Cause
Right.
It sounds like
I mean,
it's
it's
going
been a
pretty well.
very positive experience. The only thing I've thought of, and I think that this is just an adjustment as parents, I'm used to seeing, when my children particularly write an essay, that they get a piece of paper with things crossed out or arrows and notes, and realizing that there is feedback online on those papers, that the teachers do type in notes. And at first I felt that where does the feedback get for my children are they getting feedback? And for us to keep an eye on things, it's another level of independence for the kids, which on one hand is great, but we also do want to be able to help out. And just to understand the feedback is there, it's just in a different way, and it's an adjustment for us.
So what would your youngsters say to you if you were to ask the question about what's the best thing about having the Chromebooks?
The best thing. Well, like I said, for my son, it's just opened up the world of being able to participate fully in school, and that's big. I know one of the things that my daughter really likes is that now when they are in their free period, the directed study, right, that they can get homework done that they couldn't have gotten done before. There were times when they didn't have anything to do during directed study because they needed either access to the internet or to be typing a paper, and now they can get more done at school. So, you know, you mentioned worrying about kids looking at the internet or you know, having downtime, but likewise they also could be more use that time more productively.
And I know that there are about 700 or 800 parents out there that haven't gone through this. So do you have some advice for them, parents who will be using, of the kids who will be using Chromebooks for the first time
I think,
this fall?
yeah, I mean, I really think that kids rise to the occasion, which is what you mentioned. I'm very impressed with how quickly, how responsible they all are,
And that really was one of the big goals, is learner responsibility. And I really liked your differentiation between using it as a tool for teaching and using it as a tool for learning. We don't think of those as two different things, but in fact they are.
They can be.
Well, thank you all for joining me today.
Thank you
I'm
for
sure
having us.
our audience will find it helpful, and thank you all for watching.